Well, hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good wherever you are. Good. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm Rachel Grant, and thank you so much for joining me and my guest tonight, Janae Paylette. We are going to have a fabulous time. Welcome to Girlfriend Sex Talk. And even if you're a boy on the line, welcome to Girlfriend Sex Talk. And ladies, don't be bashful, even if some of the boys might be hanging out with us tonight. It's because they really want to understand us and get us. And so tonight I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about me and how Janae and I met. And then she's going to be sharing with us tonight 5 ways to juice up your sex life right now. So if you're not familiar with me, I am a sexual abuse recovery coach. And I work with survivors of childhood sexual abuse who are sick and tired of feeling broken and unfixable and burdened by the past. And they are really ready to let go of the pain of abuse and finally feel normal. And it's my great pleasure to work with clients all over the country and internationally via phone and Skype and through my program Beyond Surviving that was really developed based on my own experience of recovery from sexual abuse, as well as my training in counseling psychology and my ever so fabulous hobby of neuroscience, which does not always make me the coolest kid on the block, but I love it. And it has taught me so much about how we really heal from abuse and can move on with our lives. And so much of what is going on in the brain and how we can retrain the brain is simpatico with what Janae does in retraining the body, so to speak. And they're very much interrelated. And I actually met Janae at a conference that we were both attending, and just immediate, spark of energy just bustled into my world. And, we're standing in line for coffee and chatting about sex and talking about this and that. I thought, oh, yes, I have to have this woman in my life. And to boot, she's in the Bay Area, so I'm super excited about that. And, she does workshops all over the place, and I'm actually going to be attending one of her workshops next week. And so you guys are in for a real treat because Janae is a former healthcare attorney turned sex and intimacy coach. How cool is that? And she's also a certified Tantra teacher and sexological body worker. She works with individuals and couples really to empower them around their sexuality and strengthen their relationships and intimacy skills. She's particularly passionate about working with women who have shame and wounding around their sexuality, something, of course, that's very near and dear to my heart. And she really works with them so they can reclaim their pleasure and transform their lives. So, Janae, welcome. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I am absolutely delighted to join you on this Girlfriend Sex Talk. And it's been awesome meeting you and having you in my life as well. So I think that was just a beautiful thing that happened.
Absolutely.
So I really want to begin by welcoming everyone and acknowledging all of you for showing up for this call. I know that it can be really challenging to discuss issues around our sexuality. Often it makes us feel like we're failures, or maybe we're not doing something right, or we're broken. Many of us have a lot of shame around sex, and that makes it really hard for us to be able to talk about sex with our friends or our partners, let alone seek help from a physician, a therapist, or a coach. So my goal for this call is to create a completely safe space for you where there is no shame, no judgment, and curiosity and questions of all types and from everyone are completely welcome. Also, I want you to really understand that whatever challenges that you are experiencing around your sex life is completely normal and that you are not alone. In fact, I was recently featured in a Cosmo magazine article about female orgasm deficit, which is becoming a significant issue for women in their 20s. So let's face it, no one teaches us how to have sex, right, let alone how to have great sex. It's kind of trial and error in this country where sex education, right, if it exists, is about pregnancy and STI prevention. And we all know how the media portrays sex, which is completely unrealistic. I mean, I don't know many women who can actually have an orgasm, let alone be ready for sex after 5 minutes of making out. Do you, Rachel?
No, not many.
It's just simply.
It's a different kind of thing, right? But it's a different kind of purpose. But it isn't full arousal. Yeah, right.
But it's really not how women's bodies are wired. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited in this hour to be able to share with all of you some steps that you can take to improve your sex life and have more pleasure. And I think you're going to be really surprised at how simple some of these actions are that you can take and how they will begin to transform your sex life right away. So Rachel and I know that giving up 90 minutes of your time is a really significant investment, and we really want to make sure that you're spending your time wisely. So we know that you're in the right place if you believe that you're not having as much enjoyment and pleasure out of your sex life as you deserve. If you're feeling kind of frustrated about the sex life that you currently have, or if you just want to pick up some great tips to improve your sex life.
Awesome. All very good stuff. Oh, my goodness. So can you give us an overview of kind of what we're going to talk about? You know, where are we going to go on tonight's journey?
Absolutely. So first we're going to talk about the blocks that are preventing us from experiencing pleasure, because removing those blocks is really the most important step in able to improve our sex life. Then we're going to talk about how to take the pressure off of sex. I'm sure you all feel pressure, right? By removing the goal orientation, and how to enjoy sex in our body rather than in our head. And finally, we're going to discuss why finding relaxation during sex is so important to be able to experience more pleasure, and how understanding our own arousal pattern can really change the way in which we experience pleasure.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And
sounds really good. Yeah.
Yeah, so these are like the techniques that I'm going to share with you tonight in the information are ones that I use all the time to increase my own pleasure and to help me have better sex. And I also use these same techniques with all of my clients, especially my female clients, who aren't happy with their sex life, are experiencing no orgasms or challenges having orgasms, and want to have more pleasure. So not only am I going to share some really powerful information that you can use right away, I'm also going to share with you some information about how you can continue to go deeper into this work and really experience a true transformation of your sexuality and your life.
Awesome. That's great. Well, some of you may know that Janae and I also recently connected for Beyond Surviving Radio, which, if you're not familiar with that, that is the second Tuesday of each month over at blogtalkradio.conversationsthatheal.com. And you can always, I can say more about that later. But what was really great is we had this wonderful conversation, and Janae really shared with us quite a bit of her own journey. And for those of who are on the call tonight who weren't able to join in on that, I'd really love for you to just tell us a little bit, again, you know, kind of how you got to where you are today and what it's been like for you to kind of go on your own personal journey and see this area of your life really change and transform.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. And I definitely want to reiterate. I definitely want to emphasize, as Rachel said, that that particular conversation on Blog Talk Radio was really powerful. So if you haven't listened to it, definitely sign up and listen to it. So I'm 54 years old, and I have to tell you, and I know I've told you this, Rachel, that I'm having an incredible sex life and kind of mind-blowing, out-of-this-world type of orgasms. For me, these orgasms actually, they kind of feel like natural LSD. I am actually having sort of out-of-body experiences at this very, very, very high level. And I am incredibly grateful to be able to feel this much pleasure. But it hasn't always been this way. In fact, for many years, I didn't experience pleasure at all. So I want take you back 10 years ago when I was almost 44. And from all appearances, I was living this amazing life in New York City. I had 2 wonderful children. I had a very successful husband. I had my own thriving healthcare consulting business. And for good measure, I'm a theater aficionado. I was producing Broadway musicals on the side. So, I was really the envy of all of my friends. But in truth, the appearances can be deceiving. Because my friends didn't know, very few people knew, that I stopped having sex when I was 28 years old after my second child was born. I did this because sex was always painful for me, so not having sex seemed like a good idea at the time. There was nothing pleasurable about it. I had no orgasms, no pleasure. It was a total drag. And I was really happy to close shop, so to speak. And I took all of my sexual energy and I poured it into my career, into my kids, and my workouts. I was in the best shape ever then. But not only did my husband and I stop having sex, we stopped having any physical intimacy at all. We had no cuddling, no kissing, no touching. And before I knew it, we'd been sleeping in separate beds for over 15 years.
Oh, man.
That was a pretty intense time of my life.
Right. Whew. So that sounds really challenging. And I'm just kind of wondering, having been doing this work for some time, do you find that it's common that couples go through this where, they're not having sex or they're not having pleasurable sex or they're just kind of completely disconnected and sleeping in separate rooms and things like that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a really common occurrence, and I see it in my practice all the time. It really is very prevalent. 15 years, 20 years, 26 years, that's a long time. But I have some clients that are in that situation and some that have been not having sex, certainly not having connected sex, or maybe they have sex once every 6 months. It's not uncommon. I know it's a bad state that we're in, and I'm here to change it. So I was fortunate because I finally left my marriage after 26 years, and I actually had my first orgasm. You're not going to believe this, at the age of 48.
Hell yeah!
It was a happy day.
Yeah, I should say so.
Yeah.
Cheers for that.
I met a lover in New York who I'm actually still really friends with, and he introduced me to Tantra and sacred sexuality. And that became my own personal doorway to my own sexual healing and really my sexual awakening. So I was really blown away by my first Tantra experience, and I decided to change my entire life and career. So I did something fairly radical. I packed up my whole apartment in New York. I closed my business. I left my family and my friends. I moved to the West Coast to study with the best Tantra teachers and sex experts at the best sex institutes and trauma specialists. Mm-hmm. I became, as you said earlier, a certified Tantra teacher with 2 different schools of Tantra, a certified sexological body worker, and a somatic-based sex and intimacy coach with a pretty nice practice.
Nice.
So, Rachel, it was interesting. I was at a workshop a couple of months ago, and they asked this great question. The question was what you would like your superpower to be. And I have to say that without hesitating, I said that my superpower would be to find every really man and woman in this world who is sexually shut down or not able to experience pleasure, and basically at the snap of my fingers, transform their life so they can be fully sexually expressed and have more pleasure in their life and sex life than they could possibly imagine. It's a great superpower, right?
Heck yeah! I like that.
So unfortunately, I don't have it quite yet. So instead, we're going to have to do this the old-fashioned way by learning and practicing new skills.
Well, as
So,
you said, women don't reach arousal in like 5 seconds. So healing should not be at the snap of a finger either, eh?
Exactly. So you might want to just grab a pen and take some notes. We're also going to be sending out, right? We're going to be sending out the call afterwards.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, folks, so this is a good opportunity to remind you that this is being recorded, and you will be receiving that afterwards. But also we're going to have some time tonight for you to ask questions of Janae directly, and do not miss that opportunity, because it is an opportunity to work with a pro and a woman who really cares, and to bring your questions to the table and get some solid coaching right here on the spot. So I really encourage you to hang out and stick around for that. And so in addition to taking notes and writing down all this great stuff that you're going to be learning tonight, also be paying attention to what questions are coming up for you. Where are you feeling stuck? Where are you feeling blocks? Where does fear come up for you as we're going along here? And those will be great things to bring to the Q&A. Awesome. So, all right, let's go let's start diving in here. So what exactly keeps us from experiencing pleasure?
That's a really great question, Rachel. So we all have a sexual blueprint, and that sexual blueprint determines our relationship with our sexuality and how we interact with our partners. The blueprint is formed really early in our life. It's typically in childhood, and it consists of a number of factors, including messages that we received about sex in childhood. So this includes how open or closed your parents were about sex, what the relationship was between them, whether you grew up in a household where there was a lot of love and affection and physical touch, or did you grow up in a household like I did where their sex was never spoken about and was almost a dirty word. Or perhaps, and very sadly, like so many women, you might have grown up in a household where there was abuse and inappropriate sexual behavior that made you feel unsafe and have severe shame and fear about sex and men.
Right.
Also, I know our childhood is where so much of our wounding happens.
So
right?
much,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
And in addition, our religious and cultural upbringing also helps to form our sexual blueprint. So I work with a lot of women and men from India and Asia, and many of them grew up in very sex-negative cultures where women were supposed to be virgins when they marry. Women in those cultures were looked down upon if they dressed in a feminine or sexy way, and they received lots of negative messages and shame around young girls expressing their sexuality. Also, religious beliefs and education can also have a huge impact on our sexuality. Christianity in particular does a number on people, and really so does Islam. Yeah. So all of this wounding that we experience as young girls and young men as well form a huge piece of our sexual blueprint. And everyone experiences wounding. It's part of human existence, right? But understanding what our wounds are and where they reside within our body is really the key to being able to fully experience our pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, thank you so much for touching on all of those things. And it's, what is so amazing is that in each of these areas, there's that tension between the good and the bad, right? Like if we grow up in a household where there's abuse, there's also love in that household a lot of the time too. Right. There's that tension, that juxtaposition. Or we have a faith and a spiritual practice, and we learn so much from that, and it guides us and leads us in so many powerful and beautiful ways, and then also can become this thing that can be confused or can also limit us and teach us the wrong lessons, so to speak, right, along the way.
Right.
And certainly, so many things in culture that you touched upon about how we get to show up as women, what it is to be feminine, all these different things, and even the masculine side of that too. So I thank you for highlighting those things. And then, that really brings me to be kind of curious, like, are there different types of wounds that, like, women experience? Is there, like, what does this all lead to?
Yeah, that's also a great question. So there are three types of wounds that women experience. there are emotional wounds or blocks, there are physical wounds, and then there's sexual abuse and trauma. And often we experience a combination of these wounds.
Right.
And each of these wounds leaves some sort of scar tissue in our body. Some of it is physical, and some of it is an energetic scar tissue and emotional scar tissue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But we're going to focus on emotional wounds because that is the most common type of wounds that all women experience. And, you know, emotional wounds, Rachel, just like women, come in all sorts of shapes and sizes.
Got it.
And we can experience them from so many different ways. So from experiencing loss, from abandonment, from self-judgment, from heartbreak, just to name a couple.
Yeah.
But tonight, I really want to focus on body shame because almost every woman experiences body shame, and it is so deeply connected to our sexuality.
Okay. Yeah.
So as you know, I actually like to, and when I work with my clients, my sessions are very experiential. So we're going to have a little experience together. So we're going to do a little quick. Okay, we're going to do a little quick exercise. So I'd love everyone to close your eyes for a moment and just take a couple of deep breaths. Just allow yourself to feel your chest falling and rising and feel your butt sitting on a chair or a couch, and just allow yourself to settle down a bit. Feel like you've arrived. So I want you to notice feeling your feet on the ground, your butt on the chair. Now I'm going to ask you to do a visualization. I want you to think about a time when someone said something to you about one of your body parts that made you feel ashamed. Or perhaps it's something that you tell yourself. So maybe it's about the size of your breasts or your butt or your weight or the wrinkles on your face or the cellulite on your thighs, whatever it is. I want you to really find that thought or memory and really bring it into your visualization. Try to get as specific as you can in this memory. See if you can remember where you were when the statement was made, what you were wearing, what time of day it was, who you were with. And I'll give you all just about 30 seconds just to really stay in that memory and be in that place for a moment. Good. So once you're in that place, I want you to recall hearing that statement. So just allow yourself to hear the statement. And now I want you to scan your body and just notice what type of sensations you might be feeling in any part of your body. Maybe you're feeling some warmth or cold, or perhaps a tightening or a tingling or a pulsing. Whatever you're feeling, just be with that sensation for a moment. And notice where the feeling of shame shows up in your body. Good. Now I want you to open your eyes, and if you've got a piece of paper, just jot down on a piece of paper what you experienced in your body. So, Rachel, what I'd like to do, and I'll let you facilitate this, is to have one or two of our participants share their experience in this exercise. And what I'm really wanting you to share is talking about where shame showed up in your body and what your body experiences, rather than the story about it.
Great. Okay, so just to reiterate, that having gone through this kind of reflection, we're really looking at kind of not the big story, not the everything that happened, not the whole history that led up to the moment, but just what that body experience was for you. Do I have that right, Janae?
Correct.
Okay. So now this is a great opportunity to really show up and participate and begin right now your journey of breaking out of the shame. And so what I want you to do is press *6 on your phone in order to share. And then usually I think you're also prompted to press 1 to go into the Q&A queue. So what will happen is you'll pop up here on my side, and I'll call you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. You don't need to tell us your name. You can be completely anonymous if you'd like to be. And so go ahead and press *6 whenever you're ready. And this is also a great moment because I've been in your shoes, right, where I've been on these calls and I'm like, oh, what I have to say isn't that important, or, oh, it's no big deal what I went through. Other people's stuff is probably way bigger, and somebody else will probably volunteer and say something. And so I just want you to really check in with that also right now, because all of that chitter-chatter, like whatever is getting in the way of you raising your hand, aside from the fact, unless you're like in a busy, train station where there's lots of noise, that would be probably about the only reason why every hand couldn't be up right now. We do this, right? We come, we look for support, we seek help, and then we sit back. Mm-hmm. So I just want to encourage and nudge you guys, because this is one of those opportunities where you get to take your life and your future into your own hands. And so just ponder that, think about that. And Janae, use me as a guinea pig and model what happens next. And then, you know what? I love it. Never mind, we have a volunteer.
Awesome. Brave person.
Okay. All right. 7835. Go right ahead.
I didn't speak because I have a barking dog in the background. But my shame manifests itself as anxiety in my stomach.
In your stomach?
Yes. Always anxiety I swear it always manifests itself as anxiety in my stomach.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense, because the stomach area is an area in which a lot of our anxiety and our fear shows up. So as we, do this work and we start to really focus on where that anxiety shows up, we can start to sort of lose the experience around feeling that shame, right, by actually allowing ourselves just to sort of dive into that sense of anxiety. But thank you for sharing that. Do you feel it in your throat as well?
Yeah. But really my stomach, it does like topsy-turvy. It's as if I'm almost paralyzed. It's like you say, you go all the way back to your childhood when it first started, and you want to have a comeback. You want to have something to say when that happens, when people say things to you, but you're kind of paralyzed in your shame. And for me, me being paralyzed is the whole anxiety thing.
Yeah, that's a very common experience that we have around shame. And one of the best ways for us to actually to remove the shame is to have opportunities. We don't have time today on the call because I have so much more information to cover, but to actually have opportunities. And I actually just taught a workshop on shame where we actually got to share our shame stories, and that's a very, very powerful thing to do. So thank you for having the courage to step up and share your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's
great. What I noticed as I was doing the little exercise was just clenching, the fist, like, I also notice getting tired. Like I want yawning, like I want to shut down, let me get away from this, and then also in the belly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how we hold that energy.
Yeah, you're holding all of this, energy in different places in your body. But when we get to understand our shame response and how it shows up in our body, that's a really powerful tool for us to be able to open ourselves up to more pleasure. Because eventually, you'll be able to get to start to learn how to change that feeling of shame, right? So that it can lose the charge. And again, by being able to actually talk about our shame stories in a separate setting, which is a lot of what I do when I'm working one-on-one with people, is incredibly powerful. I wrote a very powerful blog, I know you saw it, about my shame story, which was, very intense for me, but writing it was very, very healing, and I got a lot of great comments on it. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks for that exercise. I think that just even the exercise of being aware of how we can just stop and check in with ourselves and just notice what's going on. Because we're often so rush, busy, we don't often stop to really tune in and see, what's going on there.
Totally. So I want to share one story with you, and then get to our, and then maybe keep on moving because I can see our time.
It's ticking away, isn't it?
Ticking away, right? I could talk for 3 hours. So I want to share a story with you about one of my clients, Rachel, because she has this really powerful experience with shame. So she was actually from an Iranian household, and she grew up in a place where sex wasn't talked about, and received a lot of negative messages from her mother about expressing her sexuality. So she told me that one day they were driving in a car, and she was probably like 10 or 11 at the time, and she saw this woman on the back of a motorcycle being driven by a man, and the woman's hair was flying, and she was holding on to him very tightly. And this really kind of turned her on, And she sort of said out loud in the car, "Oh, my God, I wish that was me." Her mother immediately came down really hard on her and told her that only slutty women ride on the back of motorcycles. And if she did that, she would be a slut too. So it's interesting because she told me the story while we were doing some work, and she was starting to feel a little pleasure in her body. And the minute she felt that pleasure, she froze up and she started crying. Right. And when I asked her what was going on, she told me that as she was starting to feel pleasure, she heard her mother's voice in her head telling her that she was a slut and that pleasure was shameful. It's really powerful the way these messages come about.
Yeah. Good God.
The good news about her is that, we've been working for about 6 months, and we worked through the shame, and now she's having lots of pleasure during sex, and she's also having orgasms. So,
yay!
Yay! It really, really works. Good. Absolutely.
Good. And this is, what a great story to just illustrate how from a split-second moment in some instances, that's probably a 1 minute, 2 minute exchange, ends up impacting so much over such a long period of time. And so that emotional wounding that happens is so critical. And I know you also talk about physical wounding. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite subjects, and we don't have a lot of time for it, but I just want to really say briefly that physical wounding is a very common experience for women that is frequently overlooked, and it often happens during childbirth, from GYN exams, from breast surgery and hysterectomies, abortions. So in addition to these experiences leaving physical scar tissue that can make sex uncomfortable or painful, it also leaves emotional wounds in our bodies that impact our ability to feel pleasure. For me, it was actually physical wounding. That was my block. Yeah. Our body actually starts to experience or associate sex with pain, both physical and emotional. So big stuff, and it's a lot more frequent than we think.
Got it. Yeah, it's a whole other layer, and you're right. There is so much in that, right? Not just the what happens to our bodies as women that we endure and go through, And if it's not, is this sharing too much information? But yeah, I just like went to the, the OBGYN. This is girlfriend sex talk. I get to talk about this stuff. What am I saying?
Yes, you do. That's why it's girlfriend sex talk.
Close your ears, guys, if you don't want to hear about the gynecology visit. All the guys are like squirming right now. So, but it's like such a strange experience. Every time I go, I'm like, who invented this? Where I have to lay on my back, spread my legs for a perfect stranger. To boot, she was like a 12-year-old doctor, and and have this thing shoved inside of me, and it's invasive. And certainly many of my clients who have had severe sexual abuse, it's like reiterating it over and over and over again, right?
Absolutely.
We go through these experiences, and so I just want you guys to hear, on the line that what Janae is really highlighting for us is that we have these emotional wounds that come from people shaming us, telling us things about ourselves, our bodies, etc. And then we also have these physical experiences that either create trauma or re-trigger trauma, and the body just starts going, holy hell, and no wonder the body just kind of shuts down and says, no zone, no fly zone here, just keep everything away from me, right?
Right,
and
right, absolutely.
And yet and so, but there are some really cool things that you teach that help us, navigate this wounding and start to heal. And one of the things that you talk about is letting go of goal orientation. So like taking that away from the whole experience. So I really want to hear about this because I think this one is quite a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge issue for men and for women and for men. It's a huge issue for all of us. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing, Rachel, and everyone on the call. The best advice I can give you if you want to have more pleasure, better sex, and more orgasms is this. Stop wanting to have it. Right? It's true. Right? What happens with women is that we're constantly chasing orgasms, and when we chase them, they run away from us, right? So let me ask all of you if this is a familiar scenario. So let's say you're getting really aroused and you're maybe at, like on a scale of 1 to 10, you're an 8 out of a 10, right? And you feel your body getting close to coming, your heart rate's increasing, you're breathing harder, you're feeling lots of sensation in your vagina, your pussy, and maybe other parts of your body as well. And then you start thinking about the fact that you're close to having an orgasm, and boom, that orgasm is gone. What happens? Done, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. So you're just hanging out at this like 8 incredibly frustrating experience. Mm-hmm. So this is something that it sounds really hard to do, but it does involve a change in your belief system, but it is absolutely so worthwhile. And this is actually, we haven't talked much about it, but this is actually a Tantra principle of enjoying the journey and just not worrying about the destination, right? So remember I told you that the first Tantra experience I had changed my life forever? Well, this is why. Because it was this principle that sex is about pleasure and not about the outcome. So what my lover said to me was that all I needed to do for the whole evening was just be present and receive pleasure. I didn't have to worry about coming. I didn't have to worry about trying to please him. I was able to, for the first time ever in my life, completely relax my body. And that was an incredible night for me because I felt sensations and I had a pleasure that I never experienced before. And honestly, that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Every time you tell that story, I'm just like, damn it, I'm so jealous. Okay. So to be fair, I've had wonderful lovers of that sort too, who also and very much helped me in the similar way. But yet I know there are probably folks online going, well, I don't have anybody like that in my world, nor could I even let anybody get close enough to me at this point to even do that. And so let's talk about this in practice for our folks, because it's a beautiful concept. I think it's amazing as a mindset to step away from the got to get to the end, got to get to the end, got to get to that orgasm, and just be in the moment. So how do we actually put this into practice, especially if we don't have a partner, can't imagine even getting close to someone? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I'm a huge advocate of a self-loving or a self-pleasuring practice. And I recommend that all of my clients do it on a regular basis, whether or not you're in a sexual relationship with a partner, because solo sex is a really different experience than partner sex, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you're involved in pleasuring yourself, this change in belief system is a little bit more challenging. It takes a little more perseverance, because unlike when you're with a partner, there's no one sitting there and telling you to just relax and enjoy the sensation.
Right.
So we have almost a stronger tendency, this is what I noticed, to chase that orgasm. Right, exactly.
Right.
Like, well, damn it, I've been doing this for 30 minutes. Right. So, and it's this judgment that we have, how hard women are in ourselves, how self-critical, that we feel like our self-loving session wasn't successful if we didn't come. So we really need to disavow ourselves of that notion and just enjoy the time that we set aside to be with and love ourselves. Sometimes I just have women just touch themselves just with their clothes on, just to have the experience of loving yourself with absolutely no outcome whatsoever.
I love that.
Right? So when you're with a partner, it's really important with the partner to have a conversation about this. And, I think for the men on the line, I know you will agree with me on this, men are so relieved when they're told there is no goal orientation.
Right.
Because, they just want to please us. And they have performance anxiety issues around sex as well. Right? So they just want to make their partner come, and they feel totally inadequate when that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So if a man feels a lot of pressure, you can see how it can easily spiral down for both of you if that goal isn't achieved.
Takes all of the fun out of it. Yeah.
Totally. The other thing I really want to say, and I'm a big advocate of this, is that I really want to remove the goal orientation, not just around orgasms, but also around sex itself. And I really think that we need to be redefining with our partner what sex is. So I personally have a really broad definition of sex, and it's not just intercourse. Yeah? So I think for me, sex is any type of erotic activity that involves some sort of touch.
Yeah.
So I can be having sex when I'm giving my partner a sensual massage, and I can be having sex when he's going down on me. The only thing that I really care about is that we're both in our bodies. We're totally present with each other. We're giving and receiving touch and pleasure. And again, I come back to that principle of enjoying the journey and not worrying about the destination. And that change in belief system removes so much pressure for both men and women around sexual performance. And, when that pressure is relieved and the anxiety is removed, some really amazing things can happen.
I think that's huge. Absolutely. And, I don't know if we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but what that really brought up for me, because this is something that comes up so often for my clients, and I know we're going to talk about that here in just a second, is just that this also involves choice, right? That so often, particularly women who have been abused, find themselves in a place of experiencing sex as obligation. It's not really about them. It's not really about their bodies. It's not really about their pleasure. That it's about just showing up and letting their partner do whatever they're going to do and then getting on to the next thing. And really getting to this place where sex is about choice and not about obligation. And I think what you're talking about, taking the goal orientation out of it, getting into communication, getting clear about, this feels nice, I like that, that's good, this is good, all plays a part in that. And I know that a lot of times one of the biggest problems is that women are trying to be with their partners, even trying to touch themselves, and a whole lot of nasty comes up. Nasty thoughts, nasty sensations, not the feelings that we want to have associated with sex. We get re-triggered, right? And we disassociate. We leave our body. We go everywhere else but in our body. And, what you're talking about is so important, and yet there's this stuff that can be sitting there that makes it feel really scary, really dangerous. So what can women do? And, there are men, too, who also experience this. But what can we do when that starts to happen?
I mean, that's a really great question, because we spend so much time in our heads, right? As human beings, like we're wired to spend most of the time in our heads, thinking and planning and worrying and judging. And I like to say that our brain is our largest, but often not our most effective sex organ, right? Mm-hmm. So as you said, a great goal is to be able to turn your brain off and be in your body instead of in your head. Mm-hmm. So I have a number of tools that I teach women that are really effective in helping them inhabit their body. I teach them to men as well. And it's interesting that this is Girlfriend Sex Talk, but the tools that I use are very similar for both sexes, right? Mm-hmm. And in my coaching practice, we spend a lot of time on what I call embodiment, which is spending time in your body. But for the purpose of today, because we have time constraints, I want to focus on just one skill that is the easiest to do without a lot of instruction, right? And if you do it regularly, you're going to notice an immediate change in the amount of pleasure and sensation that you feel in your body, and probably the ability to have better and stronger orgasms. Okay, so here it is, okay? You're going to want to write this down.
Ready.
Rachel. All you need to do is open your mouth and make noise during sex. That's it. That's all you have to do.
Like a banshee. Just scream like a banshee, and you will stay in your body. I love it. Oh, my gosh. Tell me why. Why does that work?
Right? It sounds really simple. It's actually, especially for women, making noise during sex is one of the most challenging things for women to do, right? And isn't it ironic? Because making noise comes so naturally for us during the rest of our lives, but it's sort of become taboo when we're having sex. And in fact, a lot of women actually experience a lot of shame around making sex noises. We sort of have this belief that it's unladylike to howl or to scream or to make deep guttural noises. And in fact, those are the sounds that really deepen our pleasure.
Oh, wow.
So let me tell you why it works and why it's so powerful. I also think it's sexy and a lot of fun, and men really often get turned on when a woman is making noises, and it's awesome for your partner to make noises with you. You just wake up all of the neighbors and the kids. But here's the physiological reason why this works. So if you think about it, we have a number of sphincter muscles that are in our body. We have sphincter muscles in our throat, in our stomach, in our intestines, our colon, in our anus, and our vagina. And all of these sphincters are connected to each other through are connected to each other, but there's a very strong energetic connection between the sphincters in our throat and in our pelvis, particularly in the vagina. So when you open up your throat, you are also opening up your whole pelvic area, and that relaxes the vaginal muscles necessary to have orgasms. Also, think about this. It's impossible to hold your breath, which is what a lot of women do when you're making noises, and breathing. And free breathing deep breathing is by far the most important thing that you can do in order to free up orgasms and experience more pleasure. So can I give you guys another exercise?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Okay, let's do it. Okay. So what I want you to do is to scrunch up your face really tightly. And while you're doing that, scrunch it up, right?
Oh my God.
Notice whether your pelvic area and vagina feels open or closed. Just notice. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And now relax. Relax for a moment. Okay? And now notice what you're feeling in your pelvis. Now I want you to open your mouth really wide. And let's make a sound here. We can all do this together because we're all in our own homes, right? Ready? 1, 2, 3. You and I will make a sound. We'll do a ha sound. Ha. 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 Okay, and then Rachel, notice what your pelvic area feels like.
We're having so much fun. We're feeling great. We're feeling good over here. That's a good time. I might have to get off the call early and practice my self-love.
That's a good thing. That would be good homework for all of us.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
are you feeling something different between having your
definitely.
face scratched?
Mm-hmm.
Noticing more relaxation of the whole pelvic area, the vaginal muscles sort of opening, more of a relaxation?
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing.
And sound is energy, and sound helps energy to flow. So when you're making sound, you're helping to move the energy, and in order to actually feel pleasure, our sexual energy needs to be open and flowing and not blocked. And sound is one of the great tools to be able, because it is an energy itself, to be able to actually open up that free flow of energy.
Well, and I love that, and that it actually goes completely different in a different direction than I thought you were going to go in. But what I love that about that too is when we're making sound, when we're in that space, it almost does, it like drowns out all of the chatter in your head. It's like when you're making that physical and auditory response, it's like the brain can't just wander off wherever it wants to go.
That's absolutely right. That's part of the embodiment. So learning the proper way to breathe with your mouth open, like all of those tools make you focus on what's going on in your body, and it prevents the chatter from happening in the brain. Absolutely.
Right.
There's a bunch of other tools, but that's like really the easiest thing. And I really want to challenge all of you to try that and experiment with it and talk to your partner about it, because it's a really fun thing to do, and it really does start changing the energy very, very dramatically for people.
Awesome. Yeah, I just read this great article that was it's one of those 12 things men don't really care about in bed. And one of them was the noises that you make. It's as long as you aren't screaming bloody murder in my ear, and bursting my eardrum, be as loud as you want or be as quiet as you want, have whatever experience you want to have. And so, don't, for you ladies, allow yourself to be expressive, and especially given the disconnection that we've learned about today, that's absolutely, absolutely amazing. So I know we've got a lot more to talk about, but I want to just take a moment here to pause, because what you've shared so far has just been super, super helpful. And, I know there's other stuff that we want to talk about, and we want to go ahead and make sure we get on the line for questions. But I want to just pause here for a few minutes, and I want you to tell us more about, you mentioned, that how women can go deeper into this work. So I want you to tell us about that, and I know you also have put together a very special gift for everyone who's here tonight. So can you tell us about that, Janae?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking about that. So it is my sincere desire to help everyone on this line discover your own sort of pathway to pleasure so that you can transform your sex life and really your life. So everyone's experience, your background, your relationship status, and the unique issues that you are dealing with are really unique to you, and so is creating your own pathway to pleasure. And I want every one of you to know that if I could change my sex life at my age and in my situation, then every single person on this call can also transform their sex life and their life as well. So I am so deeply committed to helping women transform their sex life and men and have more pleasure that I'm offering all of you a free 60-minute Discover Your Pathway to Pleasure one-on-one coaching session with me. But here's the thing. I've got a really busy schedule right now, and I only have 5 spots available. So I want you to know that these discovery sessions are very powerful. I typically do them if you're in the Bay Area in person or on Skype if you're not. And in this 1 hour, you will discover the blocks, because we all have them, that are preventing you from having a more powerful sex life and experiencing more pleasure. Together, we'll identify the most powerful actions you can take to remove the blocks and reclaim your pleasure. And you'll also learn the 4 essential steps that you can take to have a fulfilling and powerful sex life. And my promise to you is that you'll leave the session with trust and confidence that you can have the juicy, fulfilling, and intimate sexual relationship that you desire.
That sounds super yummy. And if if I didn't already know it from you, I would do it myself. Oh, my gosh. So y'all better watch out because I might take one of those 5 spots. So get on it. And can anyone, this is a really amazing offer, and I really appreciate you making yourself so available given your schedule. And who can sign up for this session? Is it for anyone?
Absolutely, but I only want you to sign up for this session if you are really serious about learning how to experience more pleasure in your life, if you're really ready to commit the time and resources to learning and practicing new skills and belief systems, and you're willing and able to explore, some of your scariest fears and wounds around your own sexuality. These sessions are really powerful, and I want to give you an example of how just attending the session was life-changing for one of my clients who was struggling after a divorce. So during our 1-hour Discover Your Pathway to Pleasure session, we talked about the pattern she had developed with choosing the wrong men. She kept on choosing men who were not kind to her, who betrayed her trust, and did not make her feel safe. And during the session, she realized for the first time that she was recreating an abusive relationship that she had as a child, and that her inability to experience an orgasm was related to never feeling safe in the presence of a man. So I've been working with her for several months, and I'm really happy to report that she's dating 3 amazing men who she trusts, she can have fun with, and she feels safe surrendering into pleasure. And also, and this is what happens when we start really getting empowered around our sexuality, she's also taken control of other aspects of her life, right? She's improved her relationship with her 2 boys, and she's able to stand up to her ex-husband and state what her desires and her needs are.
Oh, my gosh. That's so super cool. Good for her and good for you because you're just a life changer. And you know this stuff, like you know how to really get in there and guide women and men to the other side of this. So, okay, so if you're listening and you're like, yes, 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 I want this, I want this, I want this, how do I get it? I get it, I get it. What do they do?
So it's super simple. You just go to this link. I'm going to tell you what it is. You want to write this down. The link is bit.ly/pathway to pleasure, all one word.
Right on.
And you just have to complete a short application to be considered for one of my 5 spots.
Okay.
Also, I have a special bonus. If you sign up for this during the next 30 minutes, or let's say before 8 o'clock, I'm also going to send you my very delicious Chocogasm meditation, which is incredibly yummy, and it's really fun to do with yourself or with a partner.
Does it involve chocolate?
Yeah, of course. Chocogasm meditation.
Oh, you guys are really in trouble now. You all really better hurry up and get over there because chocolate is on the line now. Shoot. Oh, my gosh. Okay, this sounds great. So just to repeat one more time, guys, if you want to sign up for this great session with Janae, what you need to go to bit.ly/pathway to pleasure. I'll also be sending this link out to you all in the email tonight, and so that might not go out until after 8, but if you want to get on it right this second, head on over while we're switching over to the Q&A and fill out that application, bit.ly/pathway to pleasure. So I know we have a lot of other things that we wanted to talk about tonight, but what I'm thinking, Janae, is that we go ahead and open up the lines for Q&A. And it's quite possible that questions will link into things that we didn't get a chance to talk about tonight, or we'll just find time to weave that stuff in as we go. But I'd love to give people an opportunity to join in. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Okay. Cool. So what you want to do, if you would like to ask Janae a question, is to go ahead and press *6 on your phone. And again, I'll call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. You can also, I want to give you guys an alternative option as well, which is to text 650-283-5215. I'll say it again, 650-283-5215. So you can also text your questions, and I'll read those out. And, sometimes it's a little bit easier via text and all that to ask a question. Just know that sometimes it's a little bit harder to coach you or guide you from text, but we will do the best that we absolutely can. And, again, like I mentioned, this is an opportunity to get some A-class coaching. So if you've got anything on your mind, any questions rumbling around there, do please take advantage of this time with Janae. So, again, you can press *6, or you can you can text 650-283-5215. So while people are pondering what questions they'd like to ask, getting up their courage, or furiously texting on a teeny phone, I want to go to something that you and I have chatted about before that I think would be great to share here tonight, which is this whole idea of an arousal pattern. You've talked with me a lot about how, we don't go from 0 to 60 in just like that, and that it's a process, and that there are different things that we go through. And so, on one hand, it sounds great. On the other hand, it sounds like, oh, that's a little scary, or it sounds so clinical. Can I just, get horny? Why has it got to be an arousal pattern, And so, explain this. What is this all about?
Well, everyone has their own, every woman and every man, but women's roadmaps to arousal are much more complicated than men's roadmaps to arousal. Like, men wear their arousal roadmap outside of their body, and our arousal roadmap is inside of our body, and everybody has sort of a different way in which they get turned on. And also, there's different levels of arousal, and I think that's one of the things that people don't really understand, is that there's, mid-levels of arousal, there's low levels of arousal, and there's really high levels of arousal. And the higher you are aroused, the more intense pleasure that you're having. Pleasure has, I like to think about it as an onion, Rachel, and it's like you can peel through layers of pleasure, so you're having more and more and more and more pleasure the more highly aroused you are. And there's a million different variables in the roadmap, right? It's like, what kind of pressure do we like? Do we like, biting or scratching or hard pressure? Do we like our nipples to be stimulated? And also at what point? So let me tell you something that for me, so I can have an orgasm through nipple stimulation. However, and this is a big but that my partner really has had to learn, if you touch my nipples before I'm aroused, really highly aroused, it just feels like sandpaper, and it really is bother me, and I'll ask him to remove his hands, right? So what happens is our body gets more and more and more warmed up. A woman's body gets warmed up from the outside in, meaning like literally starting from touching extremities, arms and legs, and, necks are really erogenous places. So I always tell men, I teach a class for men, a master lover workshop for men, never go for the breasts first, never go for the pussy first. Start from the outside, because a woman's body gets warmed up from the outside in. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason why so many women don't get aroused and aren't really stimulated, because they're really not ready for sex. They're not ready for penetration. They need a lot more time. I typically say, and there's variations on this, right? But I typically tell my male clients 30 to 40 minutes minimum of arousing a woman before you even think about having intercourse with her.
Mm-hmm. Right on. And how many of them look downcast and sad after you tell them that?
You know what?
Let me just.
I think, men are pleasers. Like, men just really want to please women.
I really want you to highlight that. Yeah, I really want to bring that up really into our awareness, because my first instinct, and I know a lot of my girlfriends' first instinct, is that takes too much time. I'm asking too much. It's gonna, no guy wants to spend that much time on me. All that stuff. So we've got to challenge that, either myth or belief or whatever it is that's sitting there that causes women to just basically, I think, give in, just be like, well, whatever. Because I think certainly, I've had different sexual experiences, but if I don't set that as an expectation, or if I don't ask for that, here and there or whatever, sometimes, quickie sex is great, but sometimes you need something more. And so I think there's the belief that men don't want to spend that time. And then there's also the obstacle of, how do we even ask for that? How do we even create, what do we say? Because here's the cliche in my head. Women just want more foreplay. Women just want more foreplay. And, to ask for more foreplay is, being one of those girls and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a re-educate. We have to re-educate men and women about sex, and that's part of what I do in my meetup groups and my workshops and the classes that I teach is a re-education. And when a man, I have this my favorite book in the world is A Woman's Anatomy of Arousal by Sherry Winston, and a man reads that book, he's on board. He's like, yep, I get it. Yeah, I want her to go to such high levels of orgasm that she doesn't even know where she is, right? I mean, that's what I try to, that's a really important point, is that, foreplay is beautiful. Foreplay is wonderful. And again, it doesn't have to be foreplay. If we redefine sex, right? You're having sex when you're having foreplay. If there's no expectation, if there's no goal orientation, if there's no destination, then you're just spending 30 minutes experiencing amazing amounts of pleasure. And your partner, I guarantee you, is having more pleasure. I mean, mostly what I hear from men is, and this is a big issue that men have in terms of learning how to receive pleasure, is that what turns them on, how they receive pleasure, is by pleasing a woman. Men are natural born pleasers. That's who they basically are. And, it's the context in which the conversation has. And if it's like, if a woman is really responding because the man knows what he's doing and she knows her own arousal pattern and she can give him some direction, right? Like, it's really hard for men not to have a roadmap. Yeah. So when we know, when you asked me about the importance of your arousal pattern, when you know as a woman what your arousal pattern is, men are so happy. It's like, oh, thank God, you can give me a little bit of a roadmap here. I don't have to rediscover it every single time. And the thing about women also is that our arousal pattern shifts from day to day and week to week and minute to minute, right? We have to constantly be checking in our body and saying, like, well, I know that worked last time, honey, but now I want you to, do something else. Because we also get bored really easily. So we also have to make sure that things are, kind of, exciting. So arousal patterns are incredibly important. And very, very powerful. And women, like, have the conversation with your partner. Have the conversation about how much better it feels when you don't have to go and use, lubrication because you're already wet because you are at such a high level of arousal. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah. So it's a great question.
Thanks. Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. And so we have a question by text.
Beautiful.
And so here it is. My husband and I have great oral sex and both orgasm almost every time. However, neither of us can orgasm from intercourse. Any tips for how to, in particular, get him to come? I'm mainly asking because we want to have a baby soon, and I'm worried about making it happen.
Well, I think therein lies the problem right there. that there's a lot of anxiety around performance. So it makes sense that it's great when they're having oral sex, because when you're having oral sex, you're not thinking about the destination of having a baby. Mm-hmm. But the minute they have intercourse, they're both in their heads thinking about, I want him, he's maybe like, I want to be able to deliver because we want to get pregnant. So the biggest issue for them, and the best thing that they can do, first of all, is to learn how to relax. So I work with men. What he's experienced is called delayed ejaculation or challenges ejaculating, which is not that uncommon. And it is almost always just related to anxiety, right? And so I work a lot with my clients on helping them learn, my male clients, on helping them learn how to relax during intercourse. So what they can do is some of that, to learn how to do some really deep breathing techniques, and also to take the pressure off of intercourse for them right now, because that's what they're both feeling, right? He's feeling all of this anxiety. So he needs to know, like, whether he ejaculates or he doesn't ejaculate, it's fine. She's still having pleasure. And while we want to get pregnant, it doesn't have to happen tomorrow. And the more he can just relax into it and use breathing techniques, the more he'll be able to ejaculate. It's a great question.
The thought, the image that just came to mind for me was like, pretend you're like those teenagers who are scared to get pregnant. Let that be the story. I love fantasies, right? Like, we're the teenagers again, no way in hell do we want a baby, and just have sex. We just want to have sex and just enjoy each other and just have sex, because it's like it's goal orientation again. It's just a different goal. It's baby instead of orgasm.
It's a baby goal, and it's not unusual. And I work with a bunch of fertility specialists, and when you're trying to get pregnant, it just becomes like a chore, a task. It's not even fun. And what happens for both men have all this performance anxiety, and then women don't experience pleasure either. And did you know that when a woman has a very strong orgasm, the uterus is also involved in orgasm? And the uterus is involved in orgasm because it's actually sucking the sperm up into the woman's cervix, right, so that she can be impregnated. So it's really important for both of them to relax and have fun and take the pressure off, and for him to learn some really good breathing techniques.
Yeah. And I really encourage you, because Janae definitely works with couples, and based on your area code, it looks like you're in the Bay Area. So this is prime opportunity to get on the line with her, and at the very, very least, check out her website. And this goes for everybody. Check out her website, powerofpleasure.com, and get tapped into her event circuit, because she's got some meetups, she's got some workshops, some really great stuff. So even if working one-on-one with Janae isn't the best next step for you, certainly tapping into her resources and her workshops at the very least would be, for sure.
That's great. And also, I want to also add that we can continue this. I've started a Facebook page called Girlfriend Sex Talk. And and I would love for everybody to go and, I guess, like it. I'm not so bad at this. You're better at this, Rachel. So that we can continue the conversation on Girlfriend Sex Talk. So that I really started it as an online community where people can ask questions, they can get questions answered, and can sort of be like conversation place, safe space to have conversation.
Very cool. Yeah, definitely. So that to get to there, you're just going to go facebook.com/girlfriendsextalk, and I've liked it just this very second. So you can certainly connect with us over there and ask any other questions, and certainly connect with Janae on Facebook and email her that way as well. Okay, great. So again, if you have a question, you can press *6 to talk with us here on the line, or you can text 650-283-5215, and we'll hang out. So Okay, so arousal patterns, we got through all of that, talking about relaxation. I know another piece of this that you kind of hinted at here and there, but maybe we'll take a moment for the last few minutes tonight to talk about just breathing. Can we just take a...
So, by far the most powerful tool that you can use in order for almost every sexual issue that we're dealing with, from early ejaculation to delayed ejaculation to erectile dysfunction to pain during intercourse. I work with a lot of pelvic pain specialists and work with a lot of women who have experienced vaginismus, which is a contraction of the vaginal muscles, which makes intercourse very painful, is to learn how to actually breathe. And most people do not breathe correctly. Almost all of us breathe from our chest. And I teach people how to breathe not only from their diaphragm, but also like even deeper into their genitals. And breath is, here's one of the most interesting and paradoxical things about orgasm, that orgasm actually happens at the intersection of high levels of arousal and high levels of relaxation. And it's the interplay of our two nervous systems, our parasympathetic nervous system and our sympathetic nervous system, which control our breathing and our heart rate and sort of our fight and flight response, that actually regulate this. But what often happens is that, for women who get stuck and don't have an orgasm, it's because they stopped breathing or they're not breathing enough. And it's actually the relaxation, because what is orgasm? It's actually a release of energy. And that doesn't happen unless there's a place for that energy to go. And typically what happens is it just gets stuck in our genitals and there's no place for it to go. So breathing is so incredibly powerful and allows us to really open up our channels in which our sexual energy flows, allows us to learn how to relax, and different types of breathing can also be used to increase our sexual energy. So breathing can both be something to relax us, and it's also something that can actually, we can use more charging, intense breaths to increase our sexual energy, which is also can be a really powerful tool to use if you're feeling like you're at the verge of pleasure, but you can't actually get there, or if you're just like not feeling it and you need to actually charge your energy up yourself. But breathing is like number one thing, and it's important for so many reasons. Like one of my mentors has this saying, the more you breathe, the more you feel. And it's true about physical pleasure. It's one of the ways in which we get into our body by breathing. It allows our body to slow down, and then we can actually start to feel sensations in different parts of our body. And it also allows us to tap into our emotional energy as well. And there's a lot of emotion associated with sex, especially with women. Often during intercourse, women will cry, right? I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I've definitely experienced it. And it kind of can freak your partner out because they're thinking like, oh my God, like, does she want me to marry her? Or did I do something that I hurt her? Especially for me, like, and then my partner's like, oh my God, are you in pain or whatever? And it's not. It's just like there's so much emotion stored in a woman's vagina and in her uterus, in her whole sexual center, that, actually penetrating it and stimulating it starts to release a lot of that emotion. So it's not at all uncommon for women to get really emotional during sex. And my advice to men is just to hold the space. Just be present. Don't do anything. Don't try to calm her down. Don't ask her what's wrong. Just let her cry. Just let her be. Just let her cry. That's all that she wants you to do, is just let her cry. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's, what came to mind was something that I've kind of been exploring and learning more about these last, couple of years is it's almost like the opposite. It's like the derousal process. It's like when you've gone through this cycle and you've created basically this intense space of intimacy, you've been completely open and vulnerable, you've received this person like literally into your body, that there's almost like the after sex part that I'm almost more focused on these days. You know, it's like the what comes afterwards, because that, you know, it's the stereotypical, not that I have this happening, but have had it happen to me with the, like the, you know, roll over and go to sleep guy, you know, and a lot of times women, particularly women who have abuse in their past, man, there's just something that feels so disconnected about that, right?
Right.
And so me learning and also teaching my partners that this part, like the after sex part, is almost more important, you know, in a lot of ways than, or at least it's all a part of it, right? It's a whole journey. And oftentimes, those tears and like the whatever's coming up emotionally that's been there because you've just, you know, gotten so connected, or there's so much love there, the energy that you've shared, you know, it's a beautiful thing. You know, we've been talking a lot about kind of the technique, which is all part of it and also very beautiful. But just I guess one thing that's just coming up for me is because I know just only a teeny touch of what you do around the Tantra and all of that and how beautiful that is, like the really looking and gazing into your partner's eyes. And, you know, for those who are on the line where it's like, I can't even touch myself, I can't even touch my partner, you know, it just reminds me of a client who like hadn't had sex with her husband for 3 years. And like we literally started with, well, just sit like an inch closer to him on the couch. Like just that, like that beautiful, and even bringing that stuff into your definition of sex, right?
Yeah, I mean, totally. You are so right on there. Intimacy is what everyone really craves, and you know, Tantra, which we don't at all have enough time to get into, but sacred sexuality is such a beautiful practice, especially for couples that aren't having intercourse or having a hard time physically touching each other, because it allows you to go so slowly and just start breathing together and looking into each other's eyes and just starting to reconnect with each other, right, and honor each other and appreciate each other. And it's a very, very important tool. I actually use Tantra, Rachel, although I often don't tell people that it is Tantra. It depends on who it is. But I use my Tantra principles and my Tantra tools all the time in working with couples. It's very, very, very powerful. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to really reconnect and connect with your partner in a very, very beautiful level. And I agree with you. I like to call it the aftercare, the intimacy after sex. That's part of sex as well. It's very important, particularly for a woman who's had wounding around her sexuality, abuse, trauma, physical wounding. It's really important to be held, to be cuddled, just to know that your partner is there with you. And you know, it's interesting because, you know, men, like physiologically, typically after they ejaculate, they're spent.
They're done,
exhausted, right? And women can keep on. We can go on for hours and hours and hours and hours, right? But even if you're physiologically spent, you're just letting your partner just lie on you and hold her, even if you fall asleep holding each other. But the turning around or turning your back, like that's such a negative emotional message for someone to get. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I do work a lot with my clients, mostly with my single clients, or sometimes with my couples, on helping them to get over fears of intimacy, because fears of intimacy is a really big issue. It's a big issue for a lot of men and for some women as well, particularly those who have had, you know, harsh backgrounds in abuse and trauma. There's a lot of fear of allowing themselves to be vulnerable and open themselves up to intimacy.
Absolutely. My goodness. Well, so many good things. And, yeah, you and I mean, we could totally talk for like another 3 hours. But alas, here we are in the last few minutes of our time together today. So I want to just recap a couple of things for you guys who are on the line and who are listening to the recording. First of all, know that you can go learn more about Janae at powerofpleasure.com. And definitely take advantage of her offer for a Discover Your Pathway to Pleasure session. Again, she's only got 5 of those, and you guys have about another half hour to hang out and hop online and fill out the short application. And again, you can find that at bit.ly/pathway to pleasure. You are certainly welcome to connect with me at coach@rachelgrantcoaching.com, or come check me out at the website, rachelgrantcoaching.com. It is absolutely my pleasure to bring such great folks into your world. And so please stay connected with me and for more wonderful upcoming talks and things like this. And certainly check out the website to see the other free resources that are there for you, like the radio show and the blog, which Janae just wrote a series for. I encourage you to go check that out for sure. And am I missing anything, Janae? Have I re-mentioned everything?
No, I mean, I want to really thank you for hosting this teleseminar. This is actually my first teleseminar. I was really glad to do it with you because you're such a pro. And so I really, you asked such great questions. There was such great discussion. I really appreciate that. I want to just mention that I do have 2 upcoming events. I believe one is, when is it? November 18th or 19th, I'm doing a little bit of a tantra. I'm going to be teaching about the chakra systems, which are the energy centers through which sexual energy flows. And we're also going to be doing a really powerful meditation exercise around that. And then on December 6th, I have a new workshop that's Passionate Intimacy. It's a couples workshop. And, I don't know if it's on my website yet, but it will be very shortly. It's on Eventbrite, so I know you can find it there. So just stay connected with me. I'm always doing lots of interesting, wonderful things.
Yeah.
And I would love to have you guys join me at any of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys. Yeah, seriously, like, what are you waiting for? Like, this is amazing. She's got so much good stuff to teach you and share with you, and is a complete powerhouse of a woman and knows her stuff. So don't hesitate to reach out to her and get connected, or to me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And if I can't take care of you, I know Janae will. And so, again, I just want to thank all of you for being here. You know, sometimes the hardest first step is just acknowledging that we need some support and care in our lives, and particularly around sexuality, because doggone it if we aren't made to feel bad if we don't know what to do. And so just the fact that you're here and taking this into your life and hopefully making a difference. Again, regardless of where you are in your journey, whether it's I just want to sit 1 inch closer to my partner, or like we're so close, we're almost there, but we just need that one thing that's going to make it all fall into place. Just know that you are exactly where you need to be, and it's okay. And there are great resources, and there are great people who want to see you through to the other side, and absolutely believe and know that you can make it. Yeah. And
that's a
Janae,
great statement to make, Rachel. I think that's just, it's absolutely perfect, because everybody is at different places in the journey, but there are all sorts of resources along the way, and I really just want to be there to support you. So know that you can reach out to me in a variety of different ways as well. And for anybody who's not who doesn't know the amazing Rachel Grant and has had any issues around sexual abuse, I cannot talk more highly about her skill, her compassion, and the work that she does with women and men around that. She's absolutely incredible. So, yes, please avail yourself of all the resources that are out there for you.
Awesome. Well, you are a dear, and I love you to death. So thank you so much, and congrats on your first ever teleseminar.
Thanks, Rachel.
I hope it was Awesome. Good night, everybody. Take
Good night, everyone. Bye.